Hey, Christina.
Hi, Susan.
Let's keep talking about confidence intervals. Let's make a confidence. Let's build one.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do
Okay.
it. Okay. So before we do that, I just wanted to show in your notes, there are different notations for writing the confidence interval.
Yes.
And so I think we showed these in the pre-class video
We
already,
did.
but they're also there in your notes. Okay. So
Okay.
for a proportion confidence interval, our lower limit is what we get. We take that sample proportion minus the margin of error, and the upper limit is that sample proportion plus the margin of error. And usually I'm either going to write that as like an inequality, okay, or I would write it as an interval with parentheses.
Okay.
Okay.
But we could also do the deconstructed
Yes.
way of writing it. So how about when we get one, our first one, do we have it written all three ways?
I only have it written the first two ways.
Okay. That'll work.
Yeah, that'll work. Okay. All right, so let's look at an example here. And we'll also use this technology, okay, stat proportion stats, one sample with summary, okay?
Yes.
So when we go to proportion stats there, we're going to enter our number of successes and our number of observations and the confidence level. And then that will give us the upper and lower limits for our confidence interval.
Okay.
Okay. So here is first example. In a survey of 150 senior executives, 47% said that the most common job interview mistake is to have little or no knowledge of the company. Construct a 99% confidence interval estimate of the proportion of all senior executives who have that same opinion. Is it possible that exactly half of all senior executives believe that? Why or why not?
Okay.
All right. So we said that in StatCrunch, we have to put in our number of successes.
Oh, we weren't given that, were we?
Right. We were given the sample proportion of 47%.
And we can get it from that.
Yep. And so to find the number of successes, I'm going to want to put in 0.47 times 150, and that gives me 70.5.
So basically, we just found 47% of the sample size, which was 47% of 150.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Which was 70.5. Got it.
Yep. And then, I've got the results here from StatCrunch in the key, but let's actually go through putting that into StatCrunch.
Okay.
So, oops, that's from before. So if I have my StatCrunch open here, I'm going to go to Stat, Proportion Stats, because this is a confidence interval for a proportion.
Right.
One sample with summary.
Okay.
Basically with data, that would be like if I had a list of all 150 of those executives and like what their response was. So I'm not going to do that for proportions. I'm just going to do a summary. And then we found that number of successes over here to be 70.5.
Okay. And our sample size was 150.
So that's the number of observations. Now I have two options here, but I want to perform a confidence interval.
Okay.
And I need to change that level to 99%
because it said construct a 99% confidence interval. Okay.
Yep. And the only other thing I'm going to choose down here is confidence interval plot, just so I can look at the graph of the confidence interval.
Okay.
Okay.
What about critical value? We don't want to show it.
Oh yeah, let's show critical value too. We can show the critical value. Sorry, thanks. Okay, so then I hit compute. Let me make this table a little bigger. Well, that's
it's in our notes too.
Real big. Yeah. So this is the table that's in the notes. Okay. And so the limits for my confidence interval, the lower limit is 0.365 and the upper limit 0.575 if I round that. Okay. So what that means is, my sample proportion was 47%, And then
Yes.
if I subtract the margin of error, I get that lower limit of 0.365 or about 36.5%,
Okay.
and the upper limit of 57.5%.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So I wrote that confidence interval in interval notation, but you could also write it as an inequality
Mm-hmm.
where your population parameter P is in the middle.
Right.
Okay. So in words, that would mean we are 99% confident that the proportion of all senior executives who believe the most common mistake is to have little or no knowledge of the company is between 36.5% and 57.5%.
Okay.
Okay, within the bounds of the interval.
So basically tell how confident you are, tell what you are measuring, the proportion of, in this case, proportion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, proportion of all, and then what the question was about, and then give the lower and upper limit. Okay.
Yep. And then that question said, is it possible that exactly half of all senior executives believe that? And
I think so,
yeah,
because it's between 50% is between 36.5 and 57.5. So
right,
it's in the interval.
right.
And
So
we're
50, yeah, so 50% would be like right there,
yeah.
graph.
And we're 99% confident that the true proportion is in that interval. So yeah.
Yep. Also, I just made a little note here. If I wanted to calculate the margin of error using the formula,
Mhm.
then I got my critical value there for the 99% confidence level. I got my critical value where it says critical Z in StatCrunch. And so I can use that in that margin of error formula to calculate the margin of error. So my margin of error is 0.105 or 10.5%.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we're going to find an easier way to do that too, aren't we?
Yeah, in the next section or the
Yes.
next video in this section, there is kind of an easier way using the bounds. So,
Okay.
all right, so I'm just going to pull up this second example, and we can just kind of go through putting this in StatCrunch to get these results, okay?
Okay.
So for a class project, a political science student at a large university wants to estimate the percent of students who are registered voters. The student surveys 500 students and finds that 300 are registered voters. Give a 90% confidence interval estimate for the true percent of students who are registered voters.
Okay. This time we weren't given the proportion from the sample. We were told how many said yes, they were registered out of how many were asked. Okay.
Right, right. So when I put that into StatCrunch, I would again go to Stat, Proportion Stats, one sample with summary. My number of successes was 300. The number of observations was 500. And it asked for a 90% confidence interval.
Oh, so change that level. Yeah.
And I can show critical value. I can show the graph. Hit compute. Okay. So that gave me those, the lower limit and the upper limit for my confidence interval there.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, good. So in words, we would say we are 90% confident that the proportion of all students at the university who are registered voters is between 56.4% and 63.6%.
All right. That's it, right?
Okay. Yep. And we'll do another video for the next section here. Okay.
Okay.